Liam Neeson returns to the big screen once more in this latest crime thriller, but does it offer anything new? Welcome to Cinema, where we focus on the film. I'm Josh, this is Simply Cinema, and today we're talking about In the Land of Saints and Sinners. Let me know down in the comments below if you have seen this film, or if you're waiting for this review to check it out, and let me know thoughts on the comments below, any suggestions for future videos, and anything along the lines of that, and like this video if you enjoyed it. And getting right into the synopsis, Finbar seeks to live a quiet life as he seeks to retire from his career as an assassin, but when things go awry as the threat of terrorists show up in Northern Ireland, there's things that has to come about, and he has to question what he has to do to defend his neighbors and defend the city. And starting off with the positives, I've got to first talk about my big personal bias. As a big Liam Neeson film, I love him in whatever he's going about his business in his acting career. Even in the bad movies, I can enjoy his performance even if there's not so much from him. But for this film in particular, it is one of the better films that we've gotten from him. There's something more complex about the story, about his role, that stands out as a performance that is straight to the point. You don't expect anything too clever to be crafted, but it still does stand out on its own as its own film. And while it follows some tropes that we've gotten in previous Liam Neeson action flicks that have come over the last decade, as you've seen it repetitively go over the same type of film, it still generally takes a unique route that drives this thrill and this gripping nature that will actually kind of hook you if you're just a big fan of this type of genre of a crime thriller that goes about these threat of terrorists and going over Northern Ireland. And what they do with the landscape to Ireland, it is gorgeous. It is wonderful the way they display the cinematography, the sweeping camera movements moving across the land or going in close, knowing how to emote different emotions due to how you look up at different people or how you look down. Based on that, they know how to manipulate the emotions based on the camera, knowing how to portray the emotives and what they're doing with these camera movements and how they're displaying this story on screen. It does stand out for its own means based on the cinematography, the natural landscape of Earth and the setting. There is some nice Irish music that really works up the groundwork from this film, and the cast all throughout. It has a slow pacing that gradually builds up the story in an interesting motive that still has its own grounds to being a good film because of the way it displays and naturally has a progression that has the setup and builds up to where it's headed off to this great big finale that is a lot of fun. It may not be as huge as I'm wanting you to expect it to be, so I am saying with caution, don't expect a huge blowout, but it still has this nice setup that goes to a nice payoff all throughout the film, that has a great band of terrorists that you're really sort of on board with how they're going about their business, even if you're not going in for anything that's too complex. And going into some of the mixed aspects, like I was mentioning here and there are some tropes that you'll be generally getting that you've seen before in Liam Neeson's latest action flicks. So if you're not as big of a crime thriller fan, or generally what you gotten from Liam Neeson before, it may be something to worth checking out still as its own means, but it won't perform for everyone if you're not as big of a fan of Liam Neeson outside of the drama role or outside of the general sense of it. And of course there is the Irish accent, and while that isn't necessarily a turnoff from the whole story, if you're not as familiar with the accent, it is a bit heavier, and so some of the audio, it won't be as pitch perfect as you're willing to understand it. Just if you're American like me, there's certain phrases I didn't always hear every single thing, but generally still got the concept of the story. But throwing that in the mix aspect, just because it doesn't always work well for everyone, depending on how well you're used to hearing what the accent is like. And there's some villains where they're not always as big of a threat based on their character tropes, what you're expecting from them. It isn't horrible in any means. They go about certain lines that you expect the story to flow a certain way, and it generally does. It does have a few twists here and there from what you're expecting, but it generally goes about the same line that isn't too deep, but it goes about something that does offer something that is stylized in a way that is satisfactory. But if you're expecting something huge and depth out of it, something that really you can sink your mind into the complex narrative, this one isn't quite for you. And going in some of the negatives, there are certain aspects to some of the characters that I didn't feel were relatively explained from the get-go, what you're having to do, getting general context from these characters, and just Liam Neeson's role as Finbar, his secretive role in the background of what he's doing on the side, what he's retiring from. There's some vague information that I didn't see or hear anything that spoiled what his relationship with his friends were, how they're not knowing about what he did in the background throughout his career. I thought they were close friends and knew all about what he was doing. And when you find out later on, when it just doesn't show that they knew about it, which isn't necessarily a spoiler because of the way it all flows throughout. It sort of misguided the information of what I was expecting each character to know about him, or certain other aspects that I won't spoil, that it overall didn't always flow in the right way because of certain tidbits of information that were sort of hid based on information that the characters know, or information that we know, that sort of slowed the progression of what we're getting in the beginning. And while you're getting the gradual build-up, it doesn't always have the huge payoff or something that really builds up the information in the right way in a natural progression. That was a subtle setback only in some moments, because overall the story was good as a whole, but there were still some small tidbits that slowed the progression because you didn't know this character did this, or how deep of a connection this family had with this family. And so just certain guidelines that sort of set the film back a bit just carried this film in a nice progression, but not fully delivering as a grand experience. And so therefore I have to rate this film a simply 6.5 out of 10 with a good Liam Neeson guilty pleasure experience. Let me know down in the comments below if you have seen this film, what you think of it, or if you waited for this review to help you guide you to watching it or not. Let me know down in the comments below. Make sure to like this video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you're ready to build up this film culture community where we talk about films each and every day. So thank you for watching. Bye for now.